How you doing, everyone? My name is Ryan, this is Ade, and here we go with BoxTalk. Today, tricky subject. Boxers, post-fight careers. What's going on? There seems to be some force there. Oscar De La Hoya, back in rehab, for alcohol this time. We had Ricky Hatton, Joe Calzaghe, to name a few. Tyson recently mentioned that he's a raging alcoholic.
Yeah, and drug use as well.
What's happening? We're lost, are they?
Yeah, you kind of feel like boxing's lost this bit where as soon as someone retires, that's it, they've left them. They've gone out of the sport. There's no kind of after effect. There's no kind of this after counselling sessions. There's no who looks after the boxers once they've gone. Boxing's a sport where these guys are on top of the world. I mean, the four guys you just mentioned there, Tyson, De La Hoya, Calzaghe, Hatton, these are guys that are monsters of their sport. These are guys that kind of wanted that crowd adulation. They kind of got that kind of that buzz. How do you replace the buzz of going to a ring with 40,000 people screaming your name? And it looks like a lot of these people, unfortunately, are trying to get that buzz by going to the drugs. And maybe it starts as a recreational drinking and then it kind of just builds up. Especially with Ricky Hatton, he's always had that kind of drink issue. People used to make a joke out of it that you can drink and then he cuts himself back down to weight. When you don't need, what happens when you don't need to cut yourself back down to weight?
I think you got to look at the individual as well. Boxers are normal people.
Yeah.
Anyone could be addicted to anything. I'm trying to say by making one mistake or trying. And the innocent environment where they've got money, they're in Vegas, they're have huge fights, huge parties. People are doing drugs and alcohol like it's nothing, and they fall into it once.
Yeah. But
then they're still fighters. So they go into camp, they train, they stay healthy, and it's not an issue. Yeah. So they're okay. Once they come out of it and they have no need to, they're retired, they don't have to train no more.
Oh, so you actually think it's an issue of them, even not post-retirement, that's actually happening between fights?
I think it's happening between fights where, they live in the lifestyle, but because they're living the lifestyle, but they're actually active fighters.
No one questions it.
It's not a question, but it's not an addiction. It's a hobby. Once you're by yourself, you're no longer training, you're no longer fighting. Now it's an addiction because you have nothing to do but fall into what should I do today? Oh, I can afford to buy this.
Yeah, and they can all afford it. That's the worst thing, they can all afford it. I mean, I think what we do as well, we hold boxers on this pedestal. Like you're right, they are human beings. We've seen so many people, whether it be entertainers, whether it be footballers or any other sport, take drugs and get equally bad press. I mean, it's just a shame when it happens, especially with someone like Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah. I think he's had this clean-cut image for years, and I think everyone forgets there's a lot of history background about Oscar De La Hoya in terms of him not being so clean-cut. Yeah. And I guess for someone like him, it's probably hard, and it's been hard to kind of hold that clean-cut image all the time.
He's got the hype as well, losing his mum at a young age before the Olympics and stuff like that. He didn't have it easy. He didn't have it easy in the sense of, he's the golden boy. He was always the golden boy. He was a young child that lost his mother at a young age, went into most of the hardest sport you can possibly imagine. Yeah. I mean, it takes something special to be a fighter. Yeah. And it's just hard. It's just hard for these guys. I look at it in a way whereas other athletes could get away with it in a sense because they're other athletes. Boxing, they want to catch them and prove that boxing's bad and boxers are wrong when loads of other athletes have done it before. And I don't know, it's hard for them.
So do you almost think then that it's almost, I wouldn't say an overreaction, but in the sense, there's not 100,000 names coming out. We're talking about a few marquee names here that have done something after their boxing career that a lot of other people in any walk of life do on a regular basis. Yeah. I mean, is it because they are the kind of fighters that we look up to as heroes? Yeah. And we wouldn't want to think that these guys are doing that?
It's not that these guys... You're not known to really do that type of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's not good for your health. It's not good for your life, for your family, people around you. But I always say to people out there, drugs is not a problem when you're rich. Yeah. Drugs is a problem in general. Yeah, drugs is a problem in general, and that's the problem about it. Once you're in it and you're falling for those things, you're going to have certain signs, certain patterns. Oscar had a sponsor, so he used to hang around with him and go wherever he goes, so he didn't fall into alcohol. And somehow he still got alcohol in his system. So that shows that he's clearly a sick person. I mean, if you've got someone who's supposed to be walking with you side by side wherever you go, and you can still smuggle alcohol into your system to a state where you have to go back to rehab, I mean, that's not good. Being in Vegas for the fight, being around the whole promotion, traveling Vegas,
all the places to be.
I mean, I think he went to rehab at the right time because if Alvarez won, if Alvarez lost, he was going to be at one place after the fight. in Vegas with his friends doing what they were doing.
So you don't think it's a case of trying to replace this buzz or replace this high? You think it's just a case of they just take drugs?
Yeah,
It's almost just a disease.
Yeah, it's just that's it. People are susceptible to certain things. Yeah, we've all been there and had one bit too many to drink at one time. These guys had that one too many to drink or one drug too many, and they just carried it on. You know, you go out on Friday night, you have a couple of drinks. You wake up in the morning, you don't drink again. You go to Sunday morning, you wake up, have dinner, you go to work, you drink again on Friday or Saturday. These guys are drinking or taking drugs day in and day out, day in, day out. There's no recourse for them.
I mean, this is not a football show at all, so I don't want to really talk football too much. But I remember football set up a sort of clinic as well that was actually, I think, founded or run by a former Arsenal footballer called Tony Adams. And he set it up for footballers that go through exactly the same thing, and they then go to this clinic, they get counselling, they do this. Is it just a case of boxers? There's almost this. Boxers don't want to cry out for help because boxers is this kind of macho man sport as well. You know, you're a man, you're a tough guy. You don't want to kind of ask people for help. Is that a problem for boxers, or they don't want to ask people for help?
Yeah. Boxers are individual people. It's an individual sport. It's you against the other person. You've got to camp around you in training, or you only fight by yourself. You're a fighter, so you're going to fight and you're going to do this for you. So when these guys are in situations, I think that's their mentality where they're going to fight, they're going to fix it themselves. But unfortunately, you can't. It's an addiction. An addiction, if you know about it, addiction is a sickness. Once you're addicted to something, you're addicted for life. It's always in you. I mean, you cannot really change it.
So in terms of fighters post their career, probably not much can be done. In terms of fighters that are in their career, is it agents, promoters, is it managers? Who helps them?
No, things can be done. I feel like agent management, I think you've got to look at the whole infrastructure of the sport and how people look after people. If you're making so much money and you've got so much things around you, you should have the right people around you to help and educate and show you the right and the way things are done. And people don't see it that way. They say, well, I'm young, I'm this and so, and they're going to just walk through life without having any occasions.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. I mean, for you to have a successful future, you need to look after your money. You need to look after your health. You need to avoid certain people. You need to avoid the bad people in the sport that bring you down.
It's hard.
It's hard. It's very hard. Like, I couldn't imagine what it's like. I mean, if you've got so much money, you're going to do what you want to do. Who's going to stop you?
Yeah.
But I think that, you've got to have a good camp around you, a good team around you, and have that clean living.
So guys, what do you think? You heard about it. I mean, it's a sad one. Oscar De La Hoya going back into rehab. We've heard about Ricky Hatton as well before that. I mean, Tyson, it seems to have been something that's dogged his career throughout. A lot of people said it probably something that affected his career. A lot of time, I mean, when Tyson was at his peak, people were looking at this guy as a pound-for-pound all-time great. And then that kind of slowly faded into his late 20s. Was that something that affected his career? What happens next? Do we help these fighters? Is there some sort of post-counselling that can be done for these fighters? Or like we said, is it a macho man sport and these fighters are not asking for help? I mean, leave your comments below. We really want to touch on this subject because it's an important subject. You can email us at
BoxTalk@hotmail.co.uk.
And guys, thanks for tuning in for another edition of BoxTalk.